I'm Yulia, the voice of the podcast Love to Heal, a journey of self-discovery, healing, and spiritual growth.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Love to Heal podcast. If you have been enjoying listening to my episodes, the best way to show support is by sharing this podcast with your friends and family, as well as following me on Instagram. Today, I would like to talk to you about parenting. This has been on my mind for quite a bit. I've read some interesting books and literature on this topic and how it's related to spirituality. And so today will be one of probably several episodes that I will do on the topic of spiritual development of children and the role of parents in their upbringing, in their spiritual upbringing, I should say. When we become parents, we naturally want the best for our children, right? The best schools, the best clothes, an abundance of food, toys, fun, excitement. But what many people forget is that a child is not just a body. A child is a soul. And many people don't know what the best is for the soul, or they simply just don't even think about it. When a child is sick, we, of course, rush to make him better, to alleviate the pain, to take away discomfort. But many of us don't question the origin of the illness. Not many people pay attention to the child's character, his attitude towards people and the world around him. And people forget that this is actually where the roots of the future diseases and misfortunes lie. In order for a child to grow up healthy, it is the parent's duty to assist and guide him in establishing the proper goals in life, as well as the proper view of the world and our existence in general. It's never too early to start teaching your child to correctly relate to the world around us and to the child himself. I wasn't sure if my kids at ages about 3 and 6, maybe a little earlier, I wasn't sure if they would understand me when I spoke of unconditional love and karma and the soul existing after we pass. But they seem to absorb this information with great interest and pleasure. And even if they don't yet grasp these concepts, this information is surely already part of them, part of their subconscious. The other night, my 4-year-old daughter was falling asleep, and typically I tell her some stories I make up or read her some books, but that night, for some reason, I felt the urge to just talk to her about love and the soul and spirituality. And so I just started rambling on about the soul and how we should love everybody unconditionally and how it's important to love God first and all of that. And I didn't even look at the time. I don't know how much time had passed, but before I knew it, she was fast asleep. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm going to keep talking for a little longer because even when a person is sleeping, she's absorbing this information, this powerful, I feel like essential information for her healthy and happy upbringing. So when kids grow up, and of course I'm thinking about my kids when I say this as well, hopefully they will never feel alone, for example, because, I explain to my kids, look, the universe is in you. You are partly God, right? I always talk to them about how there's God, and then we're little droplets of God. Like if God were an ocean, we're just millions and billions of little droplets, but we have the essence of God in us. And that means we have the essence of the universe in us. We have all the answers. We have all the knowledge. We just need to know how to access it. And so this way, I'm hoping that they will never feel despair, since in them is the life force, right? In them is God himself. I tell my kids that we all have God inside of us. Our soul is part of our Creator, and so we cannot choose to love one person but hate another. Because by hating even one person, we end up hating ourselves, since we're all connected and we're all part of a larger whole. So these are the things I talk about to my kids that are now 4 and 7. And I started doing this a couple of years ago, and every time I do it more and more. And as they get older, they're starting to ask more questions and they're understanding more. And it's so interesting to see them grow up in this atmosphere of spirituality. Because when I compare it to when I was growing up and the complete absence of spirituality, how different that was, and how my teenage years were so different than I think they will be of my kids. But, time will tell. I don't know. This is sort of an experiment for me in a way, because I'm the first one in my family to bring up our children this way, in this spiritual atmosphere. So it's really interesting to see how my kids will turn out and how this will hopefully positively affect their development. As author Sergei Lazarev explains, caring for a child's survival in the present is caring for his body. Concern for the child's survival tomorrow is concern for development of his intellect and abilities. Caring for the child's survival the day after tomorrow and in the long run is caring for his soul. So what does this mean? This means that if we want to really give our kids the best future possible, if we want to think long run, long term, we need to take care of the soul. There's just no other way around it. If kids seem perfectly happy and healthy for the first, 10, 15 years of their life, does not guarantee that this health and happiness will continue into their adulthood and into their elderly years. Taking care of the soul, I feel, and I agree with these authors that I have read, it helps us stay on the right track in life, so to speak, which really helps us to maintain that internal happiness and the physical health. In other words, by giving our kids food, education, and medicine, we are securing the near future for them. But by caring for their soul through spirituality, we secure their future, the future of their children, and the path of the soul in the lives to come. Education of the soul entails teaching the child to love and to have faith while bringing him closer to God. The most important experience is acquired by a child at the level of feelings in the subconscious. What we typically call raising children, that is advice, moral education, instilling of habits, all this constitutes a mere 5 to 10% of the impact on the child. The rest believe it or not, is determined by the internal state and behavior of the parents. As you know, leading by example is the best way to teach kids, or anyone for that matter. Those who cannot educate themselves will not be able to educate their children. For example, if for parents the goal of life is to be prosperous and materialistic, then they should expect their children to grow up the same. And they shouldn't be surprised when their child treats them immorally if they in any way infringe on the child's prosperous life. And by immorally, I mean mostly disrespectful or rude or heartless to the parents. Perhaps you've experienced a form of this behavior. Perhaps you've taken away electronics from a child or confiscated a phone from a teenager. How did they react? Was it a respectful reaction or one that led to further discontent and anger on both sides? I will come back to this notion of spoiling children in a little bit. A few more words on how children learn the ways of life. They borrow their first and main model of attitude towards life from their mother. In order for a child to develop, he must communicate one-on-one with his mother, because the main learning is acquired through love and warmth. The more everyday hassle and perhaps even troubles we experience with raising children, the more often we get to communicate with them, console them, educate them, the more love is revealed in our soul, and the child reacts accordingly. The child learns to love and give energy, not only receive energy. For instance, when a child scrapes the knee and runs to the parents for comfort, or when he accidentally spills or breaks something, these are crucial learning moments during which parents must use love and patience instead of anger and irritation to promote the child's healthy emotional development and coping mechanisms. Interestingly enough, orphanage children who did not receive enough warmth and affection in early childhood often grow up with broken souls, so to speak, with little love in the soul and low self-esteem. And thus, many have behavioral problems, emotional distress, and childhood trauma. No wonder many orphans have unfortunate fates. It's absolutely crucial for a child to learn love, sincerity, care, and sacrifice early on, because without this natural education, he will not be able to develop proper social thinking and won't be able to start his own family. You can observe signs of healthy development in young kids when you watch girls and boys at play. I have one of each, so it's super interesting to me to see my son instinctively play with cars, tools, and make his toys fight, while my daughter plays mommy, puts her toys to bed, and cooks for them. This division in interests used to be the norm. Until recently, our society tried to make the sexes equal, which in my opinion is absurd and doesn't aid in the continuation of the human race. I'll explain. I talked a lot about this in the episode Men and Women, Energy Exchange. And there's 2 parts. But when it comes to children, on an energetic level, natural distinction in sexes is equally important. And not only that, unfortunately, today's toys are not supportive of a healthy development energetically and emotionally. You see, it used to be that girls played with kitchenware and baby dolls, which facilitated the transformation of their unused energy into the image of a mother, a wife, and a friend. Something that is truly needed for creation of a family in the future and the continuation of the human race. Today, when girls play with Barbies, their skills and image of a mother and wife are simply eroded. Playing with a Barbie, a girl cannot learn compassion and sacrifice because Barbies are concerned with what? Living in mansions, driving fancy cars, wearing beautiful clothes, and going to parties. So how can we expect our children to not grow up materialistic if this is what we instill in them from early on? Energetically speaking, again, the author Sergei Lazarev points out that the Barbie doll embodies the idea of infertility. And have you noticed how many women today are not able to have kids and have to go through in vitro fertilization or other methods of becoming pregnant or creating a family? Similarly for boys. Boys used to play with sticks and rocks, whatever they could find, running around and using their strength, wit, and competitiveness. Nowadays, many boys sit around playing video games, which really does nothing for their evolution into fathers and husbands. Modern science of pedagogy doesn't provide a holistic understanding of what a child is and what the meaning of children's behavior is. In fact, everything is quite simple. Until a child enters society, he identifies himself with the body, and his behavior is subject to the laws of existence of the animal world. The child has a clear innate understanding of hierarchy, the concept of a leader, and the need to submit to the leader, as well as a tendency to humiliate the weak. The child can't be condemned for this behavior. Rather, he needs to be helped to move to a higher level of relationships with others. It's the duty of parents to help their children move from the level of body to the level of spirit and soul. For this transition to occur, the child needs to be given love and his instincts held in check. Unfortunately, in today's world, oftentimes an education comes down to suppressing instincts. Raising a child is not about suppression and punishment, but about proper motivation. If you clearly explain to a child where and how to go, what is good and what is bad, leading always by example, of course, if you interest the child and give him simple, understandable goals, the child will not need to be punished. He will go on his own. He just needs to be prompted. In this way, raising a child can be reduced to 4 stages: goal formation, help and advice, warning if a child doesn't want to do something, and punishment if the child completely refuses. If the goals are correct and ambitious, then the child will be energetic and good-natured. If the goals are tied to instincts, the child will be selfish, aggressive, or depressed. If the meaning of life and the highest goal is love and unity with God, then the child will be able to change his character, his inclinations, and habits. Even if he has pathological tendencies in his subconscious that came from his ancestors, with love in the soul, he will be able to change deeply and overcome them. You can begin to instill in your child the proper hierarchy of values with basic explanations. You can say, money is good, but if you have money and no family, you will not be happy. If you have money and a family, but your soul is dark and empty, you still will not be happy. Only when there's light and joy in your soul, when love lives there will be enough energy for everything else. And you will have family, and you will have money, you will have health, you will have happiness. You can have it all, but you must teach your kids matters of the soul, that the soul comes first and the body second. Because if you have that correct hierarchy, then everything will naturally fall into place. Love is given to us by God. And when we constantly remember this, when we love our Creator and turn to Him, we receive this love and become truly happy. When it comes to educating kids, it's all about support and help, which must be accompanied by love. Of course, we can punish kids, but we should refrain from scolding, because this is equivalent to the child's destruction of the subtle plane. We must remember that it's extremely difficult to overcome dependence on instincts, since human feelings have enormous inertia. So parents need to be patient with their kids. Some very important points in upbringing are also the following. Teaching the kids to respect their parents is absolutely crucial, because this will help tremendously in putting their ego in check, since subconsciously parents are godlike. They are also creators, but on a physical plane. And the child should learn to help and look after his parents. Otherwise, he likely won't do it as an adult. My husband and I are big on this one. We always ask our kids to help out. We ask them to set the table, clear the table, unload the dishwasher, take out laundry from the dryer, and put it away. We give them all sorts of tasks to help us. And this way, it makes the kids feel like full-fledged family members. They feel like they have responsibility, they feel more adult-like, and they love spending that time with us and being around us. And really, all they're doing is repeating after us, right? So we kind of make these tasks part of everyday life, and also we make them part of play. And then this way, they learn from the start to help their parents. There's a wonderful book that I recommend to all parents called Hunt, Gather, Parent. In this book, the author explores ancient wisdom from 3 different cultures and how this wisdom can be applied to modern parenting. One of the main techniques she presents is how Maya from Mexico, the Maya parents, include their children in household tasks from a very young age, and they don't rely on bribes, threats, or any kind of chore charts. In fact, we used to have a chore chart in our house, and we got rid of it because the child needs to do everything that the adults do. Of course, with necessary modifications, but they should feel that they're part of the family and try to do what the adults are doing. So I highly recommend this book. Something else I have to mention in healthy upbringing of children is that the mom and dad should demonstrate their unity in any and all situations. Even if they're fighting among themselves, they should try their best to preserve the unity, the oneness that the child so very much needs in their early years. They need to see the parents as one. They need to see this union. They need to see a team. Otherwise, the child may have difficulty in maintaining his faith, his or her faith, and actually might have difficulty being a monotheist, might have difficulty believing in one God and having faith in God. Furthermore, the child should be praised properly. Let me also give you a little bit more explanation on this. If we praise the external ego of the child, his strength, intelligence, etc., then what happens is we actually reinforce the child's pride and attachment to the values of the world. And this is not good for the future energetically. If, however, we praise the child's kindness, helpfulness, ability to forgive, then we are actually protecting and ensuring the child's future. So again, try to think love, praising anything that has to do with love, forgiveness, kindness, being helpful, and not concentrate so much on their abilities that will make their ego skyrocket. This is something that we're trying to avoid. It's important to teach kids humility and demonstrate to them what is truly important in this life for our soul development and survival, really, in general. Believe it or not, a child needs a school for going through physical and spiritual suffering, as this is cause for development. Sometimes a child might even ask for punishment. When they misbehave, they know, they understand consciously they are misbehaving because they're seeking punishment. And this may be a sign that the child lacks normal stress in life. I talked about the strive for ideal life in the previous episode called Getting Back to the Basics. It turns out that we don't want ideal, stress-free, worry-free lives because then development will stop. Similarly, kids need to face certain hardships and stresses in order to develop mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. At our temple, where my daughter goes to pre-K, the Rebbitzin, the rabbi's wife, she always tells us, preschool is the best place for kids to learn social skills. It's important to go through experience like one kid taking another one's toy, or pushing somebody in line, or not getting to sit by your friend. Whatever the situation is, teachers are there to assist the child in handling the situation correctly, turning these moments of learning into lifelong social skills. So, of course, for a little kid, the level of stress that is needed may be way lower than for an adult, but it is needed. And that's why extracurricular activities, trips, camping, household chores, these are all excellent opportunities for the kids to learn to overcome obstacles. It should not be always about them getting what they want. You want to watch TV? Okay, go ahead, watch TV. You want to go play? Okay, go play. If a child is given everything he or she wants, trust me, 100% that child will grow up with terrible social skills and coping mechanisms, and will have very difficult time going through life and facing hardships, which will occur when he becomes an adult. When a child experiences tantrums as means for getting that which he desires, this is a clear sign that the child is a slave to his instincts. And this is where the topic of spoiling kids comes up again. From a medical perspective, research shows that there are a number of reasons why spoiling your child can be detrimental to his future. One of them is lack of life lessons. Too many gifts and material possessions can deprive them of lessons such as learning to save up, for example, being patient, and showing gratitude. Also, behavioral problems such as being overindulged, self-centered, and immature are examples of what can happen if a child is continuously spoiled. Also, there are social problems such as overspending, gambling, overreacting, and drug abuse that could occur later in life. And there's emotional immaturity and struggle to manage responsibilities like work, finances, and family. So this is just speaking from actual medical research. And the list goes on. From a spiritual perspective, some say that spoiling a child is abuse because it handicaps the child, making it more difficult for him or her to live by the soul first, to establish a connection with God, and follow spiritual and moral practices. For example, I've mentioned time and time again the importance of self-discipline, such as healthy eating and fasting, prayer and meditation, patience, forgiveness. A spoiled child will have a very difficult time adapting these practices, which of course promote a healthy soul and body. If children aren't given rules at home, how can they ever abide by the rules of society and of God? If children are never punished, how will they recognize and appreciate mercy? If children are given more than they need and can appreciate, how can they recognize and appreciate grace? If children are never made to apologize, how will they understand the concept of forgiveness? I think you get the point. I don't believe that any parent would intentionally set their children up for failure, but sometimes this may happen without our realizing it, by giving the kids everything they want. I hear this a lot, especially from immigrant parents. They want to give their kids everything they themselves ever wanted, and for the kids not to lack anything. However, this can be a dangerous enactment. Instead of spoiling kids with material, with too much praise, with lack of rules and punishment, instead, you can spoil your kids spiritually. How do you do this? Well, by prioritizing their spiritual life above all the good things that God gives us. And this will work miracles. Depending on your type and level of spirituality, you can spend more time in nature, take them to church or synagogue or mosque, whatever it is that you believe in, take them there. Show them how to practice believing in something greater than yourself. You can pray with them, you can meditate with them, you can practice gratitude, create a loving spiritual environment in the home. You can do charity work, volunteer. The options are many. In my case, just one little example, my kids really enjoyed hanging mezuzahs on our doorsteps. In case you're not familiar with the term mezuzah, it's a piece of parchment inscribed with specific Hebrew verses from the Torah, which Jews fix to the doorposts of their homes. My kids know that this is our alarm system, quote unquote, or actually, I should say, the reason for not having an alarm system, because they know that the prayer, God's words, and our belief in God protects our home from anything bad and anything evil. Needless to say, my husband and I take the kids to all the high holiday celebrations at our temple, where actually our kids get spoiled quite a bit with treats and fun, but this is okay because while they're getting spoiled, they are acquiring spirituality and love for God and community. So we take them also to services on Shabbat a couple times a month. Our son goes to Sunday school, or Hebrew school it's called, and we practice gratitude before meals and bedtime. This has become our tradition, and we enjoy it very much. It helps them, and it helps me as well to remember everything that I'm grateful for and how lucky I am to be living this life. As you can see, you can customize the upbringing of your children as long as they are not spoiled with the material and earthly, and you assist them in achieving their end goal, which the end goal is always love. I will have another very interesting episode on parenting, inspired by a tremendous book called Hold On to Your Kids, which underlines the child's need to experience enough security and unconditional love for the required shift in energy leading to independence. Please stay tuned for that. That is in the works. I thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I will leave you today with a poem by Khalil Gibran, a Lebanese-American poet. The title of the poem is On Children. So enjoy it, and until next time. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable.